the next wine is from this one probably out of all of the wineries or domains that are on the table right now is probably the least heralded and perhaps the least known. This is Domaine de Cherisey. And Cherisey is in a small hamlet which is located between the villages of Meursault and Pouilly-Montrachet. And it's right up the hill. There literally is only about 40 people that live in that hamlet, but it's home to the Domaine de Cherisey and the Martelet family. And Laurent Martelet makes this wine. And the first time I tasted it, actually with Kermit Lynch, who's the importer for the wine. And he told me, he said, he could not believe that there is a producer like this that no one has found for 100 years still in Burgundy. Because today, if you think about it, the great domains, you know, Domaine de Normandie-Conti, Domaine de Comte-Lafon, Rouleau, etc., they've all been found, and they're superstars, and with great passion. I love them. But you know, to find a small domain like this, like tucked away in the hamlet above these two greatest white wine villages in the entire world, is an amazing thing. And he just started importing these wines like 5 or 6 years ago. And these wines are quite different from what you normally think of Meursault. Obviously we have a Meursault from Rouleau here, but this is a premier called the Genelottes. But this hamlet being up on the hill, slightly higher elevation, very different aesthetic to it. Very, it's a little bit cooler, the minerality is still there, but this is a premier cru, so it's a little bit step up in fruitiness, I would say. And the wine has this beautiful depth and concentration that is really, he speaks of its premier cru quality. So this is Domaine de Cherisey.
Quite a brilliant wine. Somebody in the back. Yeah. Question? Yes, please go ahead.
You said it has premier cru status. How often do they update?
Once every 3 centuries.
Every 300 or 400 years. This is an excellent question. So the question is, when we call something Premier Cru, why is that? Who decided that? Well, it probably started about 1,000 years ago when the monks went there. And as a favorite winemaker of mine once said, and probably didn't coin it, terroir can be defined as the pursuit of personal pleasure. I think it was Dan Carlson I heard that from. Anyway, and the monks knew where it took them a while, maybe a few generations. Wait, monks don't generate. Anyway, there's probably a few sequences of people managing the land who figured out that, hey, this red grape will do well in this corner of land, and this white grape will do well in this corner of land, and let's put these vines at, a meter apart. Well, they didn't even have meters at the time. But, going back, all this was a long evolution of how we figured out how place was important in Burgundy. To the point that now there's 7 pieces of Chablis that are 100 hectares or so, 250 acres or so, that are called Grand Cru, out of 4,800 acres, or whatever the number is. And Blanchot was one of those. It was, is, and ever shall be a Grand Cru because of its exposure to the south and east, right above the River Serein with a lot of fossils in it, and a certain, growing regimen and so forth. And the same is has gone on in the Côte de Nuit for as long a time, if not longer. So that different parcels, in part because of political nudging and movement and identification of quality, and in part because of a true sense of market quality, have been granted status as Grand Cru or Premier Cru, or get a special naming right, i.e. a lieu-dit, as a climat, and therefore can name that on a label. And again, a lot of that's kind of inscripted in Burgundian law, wine law that is, that won't change until somebody figures out that, hey, let's get rid of all the Pinot Noir here and grow Cabernet, which might happen in 100 years, but it won't happen all that soon. And there will be kind of a revision, slowly but surely. But in our lifetime, what I learned were the Premier Crus 25 years ago are pretty much all the same Premier Crus, defined by elevation, by latitude, And then within that, restricted in terms of yield, restricted in terms of practices in the vineyard and so forth.
And defined by crazy intuition, like when you look at that map, you should use the borders. Like
Yeah, no, not crazy intuition. Commercial reality.
Yeah. And then once a producer is granted a certain status, they're going to hold on to it with very tenacious tentacles in order to maximize value for their product. You know, and so probably the biggest example of that is Clos Vougeot, which isn't a single producer; it's 85 owners or something like that. But it is itself a very messy and not subdivided Grand Cru that creates a wide range of quality, and is a lazy appellation, a lazy Grand Cru. And I think there are a lot of Premier Crus that are not lazy that are extraordinary. Les Amoureux maybe might be considered one of those. Ought to be Grand Cru.
I've never heard of this Premier Cru until today. Awesome. And obviously Kermit discovered not only somebody that was making extraordinary wine, but had access to vineyards that I've been doing Burgundy for a long time. And I have to say that this is a remarkable wine.
It sure is.
Really remarkable wine.
But Kermit's awesome at finding these kind of things, or maybe creating them, I don't know. It's a myth, right?
I don't think he's Spanish, so he can't create them.
Oh my!
Yes.
Oh, careful now. That was a non sequitur, but I loved it. A follow-up question, yes.
Yeah, so that was the first part of my question, which I was suspicious of that it's been a while. So what it makes it particularly anomalous that this snuck through the cracks, I guess, so to speak. That you have a Premier Cru that.
Well, I don't know that it snuck through the cracks. I think that it never got commercialized.
Okay.
And perhaps this is a grower who is selling his fruit to another producer or a négociant for the last several hundred years, and suddenly decided, Sacre bleu, I am the Grand Cru, Premier Cru, and started making their wine. And this is the evolution of Burgundy of the last century, from being a négociant-driven business to a grower-driven business. And that's why we get excited about individual growers who have awesome land, awesome vineyard practices, and hopefully awesome management practices in their cellars to make brilliant wines like Rouleau does and Ravenel does, and many, many other producers do as well. Koch, hello. Maybe we'll get there.
Speaking of Koch, we're going to skip it because some of the room, or at least we do have up here, there's some tainted glasses, so we're gonna skip it because you can hollow down somebody.
It took me a long swirl to get to the Kochness of this wine, so I think it might just have been a dirty glass.
My glass is corked.
It's not terroir. The dirty glass is not terroir.
So we're just going to skip that.